I know we have a little bit of an outline. Any of you that are new that are on that have questions, feel free to chat in, or use the question and answer function. And we'll make sure to get to your questions at some point before we're done today. So if you have questions, if you have concerns, anything that is a stuck for you in your marketing system, that is a stuck about the concepts, the principles we teach, and how another successful business owner besides Jared implemented it. We have Kim Garrett today, fabulous implementer, master implementer, had a lot of success. So feel free to chat in those questions, concerns at any time today.
I've talked to a few people, and I know that there were a few, concerns or questions and things. So I'm excited. I hope, we can help.
Yeah. What are some of them? You got any that you want to throw out there first front and center?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing probably that I got asked the most down at the leadership boot camp was, where do I start? Like what, where do I even begin? So that's something that I'm hoping we can kind of get to and talk about that, the first steps of, my dad always said, the way you eat an elephant is a bite at a time. So I think that's kind of where we go, and let them know where to start. So
absolutely love it. So we'll go ahead, we'll get started, and people probably join a little bit later, but for 7 years now, and even if I go back 12 years that I've been in hearing healthcare in audiology practice, I was creating solutions to problems that I had in my own practice. And I think Kim will probably be able to tell you her story as well. But as I created those, right, there was these high level concepts on marketing. There was these high level strategies, words like automation or lead generation or patient flow or patient journey, which are very undefined, right, until you get to the implementation standpoint. And Kim has been a great student and a master implementer. And she said, hey, I went through this journey myself. We've had success in my practice. And I keep getting answers or questions from new people in the group on, what steps do I take? What's the first thing I should do? What's the second thing I should do? So I said, well, Kim, you're a master implementer. Why don't you hop on today? Tell us kind of your journey from the last 18 months to 2 years. And then we'll dive into what were those steps that you took, so that not only do they hear from, my principles and my ideas at the 30,000 foot level, but you can kind of take them down to boots on the ground, Kim, in their practice, in their implementation strategies. So without further ado, Kim Garrett, master implementer, great student. You've had tremendous success. You're outdoing me. You're building campaigns now that I never even dreamed of. So thanks for being here, and I'll turn some time over to you.
Yeah, of course. I appreciate the opportunity, just because when we started with you guys, like, you had such high level, such great stuff, but just figuring out, like, if it would work for us too, because it worked for you, but who knows if it's actually going to work for us. And there's that, like that skeptical, we've tried a lot of things. We started our practice in 2003. My husband and I, he's an audiologist, and I had quite a bit of business experience behind me doing a couple of other startups and things. And so we felt like we had a pretty good idea of where to go. We, did a lot of hit and miss, trial and error kind of thing, but we were doing okay. We did pretty well. We won best in the state of Utah quite a few times.
How many times, Kim?
We've won 11 times now.
Okay.
I keep waiting for you to take that from me. We'll see.
No, that's all yours. I'm not even going to go in there. You beat us in Utah 11 times. So congratulations to you.
Yeah. So that was good. And then we had two things probably that really moved us toward doing something different. The first one was just anticipating, what over the counter was going to do to the market. We didn't think it was going to ruin anything by any means, but we just were trying to figure out a strategy for dealing with that one that did come down the line. So we were kind of in the midst of that, and then hits, COVID 2020. And 2020, like, for everybody else, I mean, I know it was much worse in different parts of the country, but it was obviously not great for us. We were having a really down year. Our marketing was stagnant. We had a couple of staff members who were just kind of resistant to anything that we were trying to do. And honestly, it just started feeling for both of us like we owned a crappy job, not a business, like if we were working for somebody else doing that job, we probably would have quit. So we at that point, we're like, do we want to keep doing this and doing it this way? And so we were kind of looking for some different answers, trying to figure out some things. And one of our reps said, have you heard of Odd Experts? And we'd been getting, some of Jared's creative marketing and stuff. We're like, yeah, it kind of seems like a gimmick. I don't know, all that stuff. And he was like, no, the people who do it, they see huge results. You got to talk to them. So we did it. And, like Jared said on his email, I was pretty skeptical because we've done the Audiology thing. We've done the Fuel thing. We've done the Sonus thing. We've done them all. And I feel like we'd kind of picked up whatever was useful out of them. We did learn a lot of things being an Audiology, and Fuel had helped us, but it had just it was stagnant. Like we weren't making progress. And in a way we were backsliding because, we had Costco's coming in and manufacturers buying out other practices and things. And it was just, we weren't competing well, and we were, but we were just focused on the wrong things. And we knew that. So in talking to Jared, mostly I thought we were looking for a marketing solution. I thought I had mostly a marketing problem. I thought I needed to get more people, in our practice. So then, kind of starting things and we started realizing this was about so much more than that. It was about, getting our staff trained, getting the right people in the right seats. And then, doing the marketing and bringing more people in. So that was
Kim, I have a rumor out there that you did it to prove me wrong, or Lane did it to prove me wrong. So was there a little bit of like, yeah, we'll give it a shot just to show that this is another one of those industry or profession concepts, marketing pieces or groups? Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, we honestly had like a 6-month limit. We're like, if we don't really see some good results in 6 months, we'll pull the plug and just call it another failed experiment. We've had a lot of those over the years. So yeah, that really is true.
I love that. And I talk a lot about the achievers, right? There's 3 different groups of people that we'll often see on a webinar or on a call or in the group. There's achievers, there's believers, and there's doubters, right? And then there's people that are just turncoats, right? They're just there to cause problems. But a doubter is fine, right? We all come in with past baggage or past experiences or past groups. And those are sometimes the most challenging, the most fun ones to work with and show. And so you guys have had tremendous success. I don't know how much of that you want to share, but maybe share with everybody, kind of what that success looked like. And then let's boil it down into, kind of what were the steps and what were the instincts and behaviors and the things you had to do to get that traction.
Yeah, no, for sure. I actually pulled that up. I had Lane pull it up today just because I wanted to be able to kind of see, up to date where we're at. The first full year, so 2021, we started with you in, I want to say September, October of 2020. So we were just kind of getting everything in place. So the first full year, which was 2021, we were up 95% profitability from 2019. I'm not even comparing it to 2020 because we're just putting that one in the past. But and then this year we're actually up, our revenue's up another 25% and our profitability is up 46% over last year. So that's absolutely, those numbers are you can compare that to any industry. I'd make that investment every day, for a business doing that.
I mean, that's absolutely amazing. Congratulations to both you and Lane for the work you put in, the team you built. You definitely jumped, all into everything, training and mindset and marketing and all the implementation. I remember that first trip, you guys drove down to St. George. We were in an old whiteboarding room, and we just had this marketing day that must have felt probably like Susan and John and Darian and everybody on the call today, like a fire hose, right? There was high level brainstorm conversations. There were high level discussions. There were terms you probably hadn't heard before or heard in this way. What was that initial wow moment? What was that initial whiteboarding session like?
Yeah. So the thing that I remember most about that whiteboarding session is the first thing that June Morgan wanted us to do was to come up with a goal. Like, what do you want to achieve this next year? It was January. What is your goal? And we thought And I'll just be perfectly honest. I mean, we thought, you know, if we could hit, I think it was like 850,000 or so, it was pretty low. You know, we thought we were just coming out of COVID and stuff. And you and Morgan just actually, I remember you looking at each other and actually just laughing, saying, no, you guys can hit $1 million. We'd never hit 1 million. We'd come close. We had a really good year in like 2019. We'd gone like 920 or something. We're like, no, we've never hit $1 million. Like that's too big for us. And you were like, and you guys just built us up and convinced us, okay, no, you can do this. You can do $1 million. And once we committed to that goal, then you taught us how to work backwards and say, okay, so if that's what we're trying to do, how much revenue do we need to bring in every month? What's your conversion rate? How many patients do we need to bring in? How many, you know, and we worked backwards. We worked the numbers instead of just guessing and, you know, throwing numbers out in the air. We actually worked and figured out a plan for achieving that goal. And we blew that goal away, blew it away.
Yeah, congratulations. It's so exciting because I remember that meeting and now we look back, right? And most of the people joining our group are looking to break that 1 million mark for the first time ever, right? They're coming up on private practice plateau #1. They're really trying to get their feet and their foundation under them. And so going back to that moment, here's the, you know, probably at the time, the 9-time or 10-time best of state champions. I've heard Timpanogos hearing and tinnitus, you know, over and over again, like well known in that central Utah region. And like you're sitting there in that room saying, hey, we want to get over this threshold. We want to get past private practice plateau #1. And it's just amazing to hear the story, but also I had no doubt, right? Like you don't win those awards, you don't get those reviews. You had this strong foundation to work from. And I think most people joining the community of Aud experts have that. They're the highest rated in their market. They've done success, you know, the way they've wanted to this point. And now it's about the future. It's either about their legacy or it's about helping the next generation. So I'm so glad you're here to help the next generation, right? And know that some of the people watching live or watching on the recording are at that same moment saying, how do I get to 1 million? How do I get beyond 1 million? And I think you just gave them a nugget, a huge nugget, which is first we have to set the goal, right? So is that, maybe you said it, not me, is that really where we need to start with everybody, is what are we trying to achieve?
Yeah, I don't think you can really, like, you can't really shotgun success, right? I mean, it's best done on a laser level, you know, you dial in on it and you say, okay, this is my minimum, this is what we need to achieve. And then you break it down, you know, piece by piece. This is what needs to happen. These are my areas, you know, this is how I could achieve it. I could bring more people in. I could get better at the people that I have. I could upgrade the, you know, more of those patients. And you just kind of work through those, you know, those scenarios and figure out what needs to happen, you know, and then you work forward once you've worked that backwards.
Yeah, I mean, those principles apply to any business, right? There's 3 ways to make more money. It's get more patients, get the current patients to buy more often, or when they do buy, get them to buy at a higher ticket price, right? And so I've been working with a few of the people on the call today the same way, you know, we haven't had that whiteboarding session, which I think is crucial, to spend 6-8 hours together, even 4 hours together, if we can make the time to really slow down for a minute and say, where are we taking this ship? What direction are we going? And that $1 million mark's a pretty basic one, a pretty simple one for me. And then you mentioned, you know, working the numbers backwards. So how important is the data to you, and what are the data points? If you can go back 18 months or 2 years, what were the first data points that you were looking at?
Yeah, I mean, we'd always been probably better than most people. I knew just from previous experience, I knew how to track, you know, my marketing. I knew what sources, you know, were the most effective for me. So that was one thing that was really important, because then I knew a little bit more, you know, I could predict a little bit more, you know, okay, if I need this many more patients, I can spend this much, you know, this much more. But those data points, like we needed to know how many patients were in our database, how many were upgrade eligible. We needed to know what our conversion percentages were for new patients and for, you know, for upgrade patients. And knowing those things, you know, you can make a formula, but if you don't know really how many patients you've got, you don't know, you know, how many you can upgrade. You've got, and most of us have that information pretty readily available. I don't know of any of the CRM systems that can't pull that out for you. So that's, it's just stuff that you have to take a few minutes to learn, and
Well, I think the hard part there, you're 100% right. The office management systems, they have the data, right? But if you're an audiologist, if you're not an implementer, if you're not a business person, if you were an audiologist or a hearing instrument specialist, right, you're looking at what size receiver wires and what type of domes, right? So your
right.
data points are just different. So I've been working with, and you had some interactions, I think, at treatment boot camp a couple of weeks ago, of like, know your data. And so I talk about pockets of profitability. You mentioned some of them: tested, not treated, upgrade eligible, leads that had never come in for an appointment, current patients. Is there anything else, like when we went back originally, that pops into your head as like, this is a pocket of profitability, this is something I have to focus on?
For us, it really was our own database at first. I mean, because we knew that we had some work to do, as far as we knew that there was a bigger pocket of profitability with online stuff. Our online was pretty stagnant and pretty weak. And so we knew that going forward, we're going to have to do that, but that takes a lot more time, right? I mean, that involves, creating a new website, building some SEO, working with, if you work with Market Hardware or anybody else, like it takes some work. The quickest thing that we could do was to work with our existing patients, just to see who we had that was upgrade eligible, who we had that were competitive users, who we had, and we just really hadn't done a lot of marketing to them. I mean, we send a Christmas card, and every once in a while we'd do whatever the manufacturer said. Hey, we'll give you, $1,500 to mail this letter to your database. And so, we do that with varying results, but that really was our number one place to start. And once we did that, I mean, you called it a cash infusion campaign. When we marketed to everybody who was a potential upgrade within our own database, within 2 months, we had enough profit to fund building a new website and doing some other campaigns and things. So that was huge for us.
And I wanted to go back to that because it's something we've recommended now for 7 years. Like the first campaign, like once you understand your numbers and you have a goal, right? So if you haven't written this down, I suggest everybody write it down, right? Number 1 is set a goal. Number 2 is understand the numbers or the data. And so Kim's jumping now to, okay, so what did we do? And I remember the cash flow campaign. I mean, this is a campaign that's worked now, I think, for 7 or 8 years. The way I initially built it in automation and ran it was 3 letters, a postcard, like 2 text messages, 5 emails. It was a whole campaign. Did you start running that first and get the money and then sign up with some of the vendors like Helping Hand and Market Hardware? Or were you with the automation first and then ran the campaign? I don't really remember your specific journey.
Yeah, because we're with Blueprint, and at that point they didn't have great automation tools. I think they've got more now, but because I knew a little bit more about marketing, and it was hard to kind of pick up, but I knew that automation was going to be something we needed to do. And so starting up with Helping Hand really was probably the first thing that we did, just because going forward, I knew that was going to be important. So we did that, had them run that campaign for us.
Okay, so I didn't remember what came first with your particular journey. So for those of you, like Helping Hand is an automation company. They have a lot of our content. They built my campaigns. They helped Kim build some of her campaigns, and they're like a done with you. They can help you deploy either what I've done, what Kim's done, or what you want to build, custom yourself. But specifically, whether you have that vendor relationship yet or not, I have some vendors that I recommend. Kim probably has her way of doing things too that she recommends. More important than anything is set the goal, find those pockets of profitability, and then send a campaign. And I don't just mean one letter. And so I had a call earlier today, and it was like, I have thousands of people in my database, but I really only want to send 200 letters or 300 letters. And I kind of want to carve out this niche. So if you were to send this campaign and we want it to be cash flow insertion, we want to generate money, like who are you sending this letter or this series of letters to, Kim?
Yeah, so for the cash flow infusion campaign for us, we sent it to everybody who was upgrade eligible, everybody who was a competitive user, everybody who was tested, not treated, And if I remember right, I think we sent out about 1,700 letters that first time. And it's interesting that you say that, I'll send out 200 or whatever. Because that was probably my mentality back in the day. I think, I would just do these little pieces at a shot. And then, if the phone didn't ring, it was like, well, that doesn't work, but there was no follow-up. There was no, no picking. It was just, okay, I'm going to send it. I pulled the list of upgrade eligible and I'm going to send it to A through C or something, like I'm just going to pick the first 200 people. And you just kind of shoot yourself in the foot. What you have to figure is, if I want to get, if I'm going to send this campaign out, I want to get 10 treatments from it, right? That's going to make me $70,000. Okay. So how much am I willing to spend now? And this is what Jared totally taught us is, how much am I willing to spend to get that? If my marketing budget is 10% of that, anything that I spend less than $7,000 is a huge win for me. Right. So instead of thinking to myself, oh, I'm only going to send it to 200, I'm thinking, how many people do I need to get in here? Do I need to send it to? And then you just do that. It's an investment. You don't think about it as an expense. And if you can switch your marketing mentality to, it's this expensive thing to, this is an investment and I'm going to see results from it, it helps a ton. It changes your mentality and you just start making, I need more patients in here to make my goal for the month. So I up my Facebook ad spend because I know I'm going to get this many returns from it.
Yeah. So, we talk about the 4 pillars, right, at Aud Experts of mindset and then a culture and then the science and then the marketing, right? So everybody wants to know what the marketing is. And I truly, the hardest part for me is coaching people on first, let's change the mindset, right? And so once Kim got that idea of, okay, I can work this formula backwards, right? Now you have the mindset to be successful and you weren't just looking for the next shiny object. And here we are, months later, and now you're using the same mindset to build campaigns I never dreamt of, right? So first, I want the mindset to be that this is a formula. You truly can work the numbers backwards from your goal. You truly can set aside budget to hit the revenue goals you want if you know what the goal is. So I absolutely love that. You said you sent out about 1,600. I remember when we were trying to pick different pockets of profitability too, right? You're a small business. You're probably struggling with cash flow. You've been burned once or twice in marketing. So when somebody comes in and says, I need you to spend $3,000 in the first month and send out all this mail, you're like, but if it doesn't work, I'm going to be eating out of the food line, right?
Yeah.
And so I totally understand that. How did you take that leap of faith? How did you say, okay, let's send 1,600 letters the first time. Let's launch this campaign. What was was it just, we're going to prove him wrong, let's do it? Or was there, what was it? What was the impetus for you to actually take and do 1,600 the first time?
I think we came into it with a little bit, we were a little bit skeptical, but there was also, we kind of had reserved, okay, you know what, we are willing to spend up to this much to make this work, right? And so I honestly looked at it as kind of an experiment. I'm willing, I have this, this revenue that I'm willing to stake, essentially. Maybe I'm a gambler at heart a little bit, but I'm willing to stake this much to see how it goes. And honestly, 1,600 letters was not that much, Sure. I think we paid with everything, it was probably maybe $1,200 and, some follow-up time for phone calls and those kinds of things. But we killed it. I think our ROI, I can't remember exactly, but it was like 20 to 1. It was killer. So
yeah. And
Jane popped in a question on that one. Did you see?
Yeah,
Sorry.
I do see Jane's real quick. We'll get to it. But okay. I just want to go back to because we have the data, right, Kim? If I spend money, I'm going to make money now, right? That mindset is there for you. But for some of the new people, it's like, oh, you want more money. You want me to invest more money. I can give you historical data from my practice, Kim's practice, or anybody that's done the campaign to say, look, I know, I'll bet my life savings on it because I know it's going to work. I've seen enough proof. But somebody that's brand new to the group is still operating on faith, right? And so, helping them take that step to say, okay, I have this group of people that I haven't communicated with. Even if I spend $3,000, Do you have a number, Kim, that you want as a return? Is there a 5-to-1, a 10-to-1? What are you looking for every dollar you spend?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, just because the lifetime value of a patient is so, so high, especially if we can get them on the treatment plan, I'm actually happy anything over 3-to-1. Like I feel like that's worthwhile. I mean, right now over the lifetime, my online stuff is about 3.5, and I'm super happy with that. Like, because we're also, the thing you have to remember is you're also putting people, if you have, when you have the automation, you're also collecting those contexts that if you communicate with them, you're able to do something with them later. So you're helping yourself down the line as well. Sometimes you can't just measure just that 3-to-1 ROI or 10-to-1 or whatever, but.
Well, and you're jumping ahead right there, right? Because we
For
talked
sure.
about there's 3 ways to grow a business. It's more new patients, which almost every new person says, I need more new patients, more new patients, more new patients. Then there's how often that they're purchasing, right? And you just alluded to one of the systems that we came up with and helped evolve was this reoccurring revenue within your business. Because if I can get people to upgrade every 4 years, I can spend more upfront to get them. Right. And then if I can get the ASP higher on those hearing aid sales or those treatments, then I also have more margin. Right. So if somebody's new to the group and they're selling premium for $5,000, I don't think there's enough margin to spend 33%. But if I can get them to sell premium for 6,500 or 7 or 75 or 8, or shoot, we have a client that's probably closer to 10, then you have the profit margin to reinvest in the business. So what I'm doing in the coaching realm is always starting with, do I have enough profit margin in the way you treat patients right now to spend 33%, or do I need to keep you at 10 or 15%? So that is important. And I love that you said it, but yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. 33% is no big deal over the lifetime of a patient. And then Jane mentioned specifically, did you track tested not treated versus upgrades versus leads, or did you just look at a high level ROI?
I did. I don't know the numbers exactly, but I did track, just to see how that worked for us with that particular campaign, because we were shifting and we were giving them some new information. The tested not treated actually worked pretty well. That hasn't been the case in the last few years for people who've come in and have seen our plans, because if they come in and they don't like what we're doing, then, we're not doing anything different. But that initial one, we did see pretty good success with tested not treated.
Well, and I think I shared this on Fix It Friday, which is one of the parts of being in our coaching group. We come together as owners, as a community on Fridays, and we can solve problems. And I think you brought this up about the study and like this tested not treated group, right? And my philosophy is, if they're in your database, you should be communicating, educating, marketing, sending them pieces. If you don't think they're good, if you can't convert them, if you've already broken trust, if you've already ruined the relationship, hit the delete or the archive button and stop. Right. And I just had this conversation again with some new clients today of, well, I don't know how good my list is. Right. So none of us know until you start educating and marketing how good the list is, but you have to make a determination. Are they staying in there in long-term nurture so that I can build a relationship, or am I deleting them? And the job of marketing is getting a person to take action. They're either going to take the next step with you, or they're going to hit the eject button and be out of your list. And that's okay. But when you started, Kim, what was it like when you got junk mail back, you got bad addresses back, or people said, don't ever mail me again? What was that as an owner and somebody that I know cares about people? What was it like up front? What was that stress and anxiety like?
At first it was pretty stressful. I mean, I didn't mind the mail back as much, because that just meant I could clean up my database, because I knew that I had, 20 years of people that I didn't need to be sending to. So that was fine. It was a little bit more intimidating to me to get, people responding to the texts that were like, oh, stop, or I don't want to hear from you anymore. I went somewhere else. So you do have to learn to not take that personally. I mean, then that's, every business owner has those issues. You get a bad review, or you get someone who says, stop calling or whatever. And you just kind of have to learn to deal with that. But also, if you take it as I think the mentality you have to get is that your database is the most valuable thing that you have. And the best thing you can do is to cultivate it and to get, to take out the people who are not who don't want to hear from you, that's fine. They're not going to go forward anymore anyway. So don't waste your time or theirs or money or, any of that kind of stuff, and just keep massaging and working and getting that database to a point where it has people in who are your avatar patients. I don't know, how many of your clients know. Figuring out who really is our best type of patient was huge for us, just to kind of figure out, okay, this is what we're looking for. And then you don't feel bad taking the people out who don't fit in that mold, because they really are wasting your time and you're wasting theirs. So,
well, I think that's the big takeaway I wanted was we all have returned mail. We all have people that, went somewhere else. We all have people to delete and archive. And that's, for me, that's well worth the 50 cents or the dollar in postage to find those things out. The first month, 3 months, or 6 months of cleaning up a database is in and of itself a great thing. So don't take that as a negative. Don't take that as wasted money. For me, that's strengthening the relationship. The other thing on that first piece, like a lot of people they only send spike marketing. So maybe 4 times a year, the buying groups, Audiology, somebody says, hey, let's send an upgrade letter 4 times a year. And after you do that, and it's the same letter for 4 times, people start kind of getting angry or don't want to be bothered. Is there a switch with the cash flow letter versus that upgrade letter? Or is there a shift in strategy that's made multiple touch points more beneficial?
Yeah, I mean, that upgrade one we sent the first time, that cash infusion one, that was pretty much, this is what we're doing. We're really excited about our treatment plan. This is why we're doing it. We offered a copy of Keith's book if they, wanted some more information. We had some good response from that. But once we had that information, then we were able to actually start interacting with that database in a way that was a little bit more meaningful. We started sending more consistent, newsletters that had information that were educating patients that they could pass along. We do send a couple of different offers a year, probably, just based on different things. If it's like a tax refund or, some kind of educational event or something like that, but we're not sending the same letter. We're not sending the same format. We always do just a little bit differently. And we've tried to establish ourselves with that patient database as having their best interest in heart. So it's always something educational, and offer, if they're not ready to come in for another appointment, hey, download this free report, or come to this event, or watch this new video, or those kinds of things, so that every interaction we have with them establishes us as, why would we think about going anywhere else?
I absolutely love it, Kim. And just for the people that joined a little bit late, right? If we back up a step, we talked about mindset. You said establishing big goals, right? That was kind of, we need to know what direction we're going first. And then understanding your data and understanding the pockets of profitability in your practice. And then you can let the data drive the decisions, right? And so you said, well, Cash Flow Surge was the name of the campaign. That's the first campaign we did, and we generated huge profit. So you talk about, generating the cash to then fund the next steps. And you just mentioned using Keith's book, but I also know now that you have like 2 or 3 of your own books. So like as new people joining the group that are coming from a spike marketing world, I think we've already blown their mind, right? These people are talking about multi-touch marketing, not spike marketing. They're talking about being surgical with their intention in their marketing. And now we're talking about creating tools like newspapers, magazines, books, white papers, videos. Like, what do you tell a new person that says, this is overwhelming, what do I do first?
Yeah. So I think a lot of people get caught up in the idea that they need to make everything customized exactly to the way that they run things. So that you get caught up and intimidated because you're like, okay, I've got to make some time to make the book my own. I've got to make some time to rewrite all the white papers. I've got to, do all my own videos. And eventually, yeah, you are going to want to do that, but you don't need that at first. Like I would say, use what's been created. I mean, Keith's videos and his book and things are relevant for everybody. And if you establish yourself as a collaborator with him, then, there's no reason in the world not to use what's already, number one, what's already done, and number two, what's already proven to work, in multiple practices. So use use what's already there. Like, don't get caught up in thinking, I've got to reinvent the wheel. Like, jump in with what's already there, get that working, and then you can go back and say, okay, people are interested in the book. Let's customize that. People are, downloading, wanting tinnitus papers from my Facebook ads. Let's customize that to my system a little bit better. Those kinds of things. So use what works first.
My wife tells me all the time, right? Good, better, best. So good.
Yeah.
Right? Good would be just getting started, right? Yes, we want you to be the trusted authority in your marketplace. Yes, we want you to be a content producer, but the good step would be different, not better. And at the minute you start educating your patients before they come in for their appointment, the minute you start putting out educational, not sales material, the minute you start doing things differently, like offering a low monthly treatment plan, those are already making you stand out. You're going to be an apple in a sea of oranges the minute you do that. And then we can fine tune the campaigns later. And Kim, you mentioned to me that you started, I didn't remember this, but that you kind of started with all of our content, got it launched with Helping Hand automation, and then you started going backwards and like fixing timers and content and tweaking things. So maybe tell everybody about that, kind of how to get started, where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to go and reinvent the wheel because I knew that was gonna take a long time. So we just, in signing up for Helping Hand, we had access to, to a bunch of those funnels. Some of the huge stuff was just, sending people out the Keith's symposium before they came, just creating an email that as soon as they made an appointment, that went out. We saw our conversion rate jump from that. Having Helping Hand set up the campaign that you'd set up for sending a welcome packet that had Keith's book in and a couple other, a testimonial page and that kind of thing, that helped prepare our patients. And we just send out the stuff that you had at first, just because we didn't even really know what we were looking at, but we knew that was, we liked yours. And so we started sending that stuff out. And as that started working more and more for us, we had a little bit more time. We had some opportunities to go and add our papers in, or, do it the way that we wanted to. But it just made all the sense in the world to do proven stuff first and then work backward.
I love it. So cash flow surge makes me this huge ROI. And then that gives me the breathing space in my cash flow and in my business to deploy something like pre-education. And I think I agree with you that for most businesses, right, that either have a low treatment rate or want more people saying yes on day one, or want more people saying yes at a higher technology or price point, pre-education is huge. You mentioned both the video symposium and you mentioned pre-education campaign. Is that campaign number one that like you would start with Helping Hand and say, let's start with cash flow, and then number two, let's start with pre-education?
Yeah. And John, this is actually a good part. He just popped in a question. Can you talk about how you increased your conversion rate? That was the number one thing that we did, was sending out the video via email and sending out the welcome packet. And I was originally hesitant on that because I thought, oh, we just want to get the people in the seats. And then my providers are good enough that they'll be able to, to talk them into it or whatever. But what we started to realize is, you send out the symposium and you send out the book, and there are going to be people who occasionally call back and say, oh, yeah, this was too intense. I'm going to go to Costco instead, where I can just buy a widget or whatever. And at first I was like, well, we can't lose any people. We can't lose them or whatever. But when you look at how much time those people waste that you could be bringing other more qualified patients in. I love the pre-education campaign because it does weed out some of those people. And then you move on with people who really can use your services. So that's one way that we really increased our conversion rate, is by getting the right people who were prepared to listen and go forward before they came in.
And I think, Kim, you've been on it and you have a unique perspective, right? We offered demos years ago, the turkey mailers, all of it to get people in. And this model is just fundamentally different than anybody else that I know of out there, any other group, in that it is based upon education. It is based upon a slower patient journey. And I know you also got rid of demos recently, or are in the process of really getting to who is my avatar patient and what journey do I want them to go on. John's question makes me think about like getting a ton of physician referrals that aren't coming with the right expectation of treatment. They're coming in for wax removal. They're coming in because their doctor said so. And just getting a patient into your practice isn't the goal of the game in my business. The goal of the game in my business is to start more treatments and change more lives. And so you have to be really, really careful when you start pushing people into your office that aren't educated, who aren't ready to begin treatment, because then you start having a negative effect on your providers. You have a negative effect on your doctors. You're making everybody busier but less productive, and your revenue per chair hour goes down, your productivity goes down. So like, what was that journey like to, as a smaller practice starting and growing, to taper into that, right? Because you couldn't just dry up the leads overnight, but you had to make a transition. What type of time frame are people looking at, and what advice can you give them as they're starting that journey?
Yeah, for sure. So we have a little bit of an advantage in that Lane and I are we're married and we're partners, and he's the provider, and I actually have the time to do this kind of stuff. And I know if he would have been doing it all on his own, it probably would have slowed things down considerably, just because you're wearing so many hats. But for me, I think it was, I would say by the middle of 2021, so probably about 8 months. And we were to the point where everything, our pre-education was going out. Our staff had worked with Reese enough to be comfortable with answering the questions and things that we were getting. It was really at about that 8-month point where we were able to start creating our own content. That's when we started working on, customizing the book and customizing the videos and that kind of thing. So for that 8 months, so I would imagine if you didn't have an implementer in your office, it'd probably slow it down to a year or so. But you have to remember that year we were up 95% in revenue. So even without doing all the things, even without customizing data, just using your stuff, that year we were up 95%. So.
And I think you hit home, because one of the major things we see in the practices that have the most success, like you're at the top, right? Kim, master implementer, took the concepts, made them her own, and wasn't seeing patients at the same time. That's the same journey I was on, Kim. I was never an HIS. I was never a doctor, right? It was my passion, my purpose. I think that's the same with you. And I think that's why you just leapfrogged. I think that's why part of why you've had so much success. But what about that audiologist that is the owner and the audiologist? How do they block off for Friday? Do they dedicate time to working on the business instead of in the business? Like, what do you recommend? Because other than maybe one or two, I think maybe one doesn't, but everybody else could remove themselves a little bit from patient care to work on the future, to work on pushing past practice plateau number one. So like, what would you recommend in your way? Like, is it certain amount of time, certain days? Is it, what does that look like to Kim?
I have never met a practice owner who says, oh, I want to see patients 40 hours a week, every week, because I love it. Even if you love what you're doing, like it's still, it's a lot. Nobody wants to do that. Everybody wants to be able to step away. And the second, one of the things that you really encouraged Lane to do was, block a day off. And so he started taking Fridays off to do business stuff, for him, it was getting the books up. It was, I would make him do some stuff for me, film some videos. We'd do some calls, that kind of thing. And our productivity, even with him taking that time off, skyrocketed, just because that stuff has to be done. Like if you're running in one of those hamster wheels, you're just never going to get anywhere. You're running and you're moving, and you're expending all your energy, but you're doing the same thing over and over. So to have dramatic results, you have to do something dramatically different. And that means investing time. You got to step away. And if you're a single practitioner, and you're the only one seeing patients, maybe you start with, a couple hours a week, and maybe then move it up to an afternoon. But doing that is an investment in your business, because otherwise, one of our major goals, I don't know if you even remember, but one of the things that we wanted to do was be able to leave our business for a week or two. For 17 years, the most we'd ever gone, I think we'd taken 2 week-long vacations in that whole time. And when we came back, like chaos had
Hell
ensued.
to pay, right?
Seriously. Seriously. And we were scared to do that again. So we were one of our main goals was to get things to the point where they were running smoothly on their own, that we could go. And since we started with you, I mean, we've gone to Iceland, we've gone to Costa Rica, we've gone places, and we come back and our team they barely even knew we were gone. So that was huge.
And like I said, I mean, you hit it on early, right? With setting goals. And I think for those, if you went into business for yourself and you've been a high paid employee, you haven't been a business owner, right? You're the one doing the marketing, you're the one doing the vendor relations, you're the one doing the patient care. You just have a very high pressure, high stress, high paying job maybe, but you haven't got to the point of owning a business. And I think that's the best part for me, is seeing somebody move from all that stress into a life of freedom, into an autonomous practice, into a business owner who can leave, who can be away because they've built systems in their practice. They have a marketing strategy in their practice. They have great team members trained in their practice. So I think I agree with Kim 100%. You could reach your 3 treatment a week. If you're trying to break $1 million, it's 3 treatments. You can do 3 $7,000 treatments a week for 50 weeks, and you can hit $1 million. And if you can do those 3 treatments on Monday and Tuesday, you can work on the business Wednesday and Thursday. You can hire somebody, right? If you can just focus on 3 cash pay treatments, you're off to the races. And I think simplifying it down for people, that what we're talking about is 3 treatments per provider, can get you to that $1 million and can get you that freedom to work on the business and turn it into a business, and then go to 1 million to 3 million to 7 million to 10 million. We'll take you on that journey when you're ready for that part of the journey as well. And I think Kim has it right. You have to dedicate the time to accomplishing your goal. First, coming up with the goal and then working it backwards. I think at least 1 day a week, if not 2, 3 afternoons a week.
Yeah, no, that really is the key. And, if you don't want to do that, if you just want to see patients all the time and not worry about it, like, this is going to be a hard thing for you to do, because it does take time and it does take effort. Like, the success doesn't happen on its own. And we've seen a couple, I mean, Lane and I have a friend who joined the group, but wouldn't commit to do anything, wouldn't get on calls. He wouldn't, he thought it was going to magically do it. And that's not the case. I mean, you're going to get out of all of these things, what you put in, but it also doesn't mean that you have to, stay up all night long doing all this kind of stuff. Like, you have the time. Like, most of the stuff is just built. You can, with a little bit of effort and a little bit of help, you can plug it in and start working on it. And then as time goes on, you refine it, but don't feel like you have to do everything at once.
And like I said, I like the good, better, best approach, because if you want to pre-educate patients, but you don't have helping hand automation or a company to do it for you, you can still lick envelopes like we were doing 7 and 10 and 12 years ago and put a book in an envelope and mail it yourself. You can. All of these systems were designed to solve problems in my practice, and you can do them without automation. I don't want to, and I can't at 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 locations. But if you're a smaller practice and you're booking 5 appointments a week, you can send out 5 envelopes with 5 pre-education packets a week. That's not unheard of, right? If you don't have automation and you want a cash flow surge campaign, right, you're not going to be able to do all the texting and all the emails and all of the pieces, but you can send a 3-step letter. You're going to send 300 and then wait 2 weeks and then send 300 and then wait 2 weeks, right? You just have to dedicate the time to implementing it. And I think, Kim, I don't know if you've got that shirt yet, Master Implementer yet, because that is the difference, right? And so if you want to be a master implementer, if you want to have the success that Kim and Lane have had, if you want to elevate above the $1 million mark, you have to dedicate time to implementing, or you have to find the right team of vendors and people around you to help you execute on whatever your vision is for your practice. Kim, there was one other thing, and later on in the journey, you added in market hardware, digital marketing, and lead flow. Where was that in your journey? How many months in, and then what did that do for the next stage of your implementation?
Yeah, that was, well, we had to get all the systems in place to be able, because one thing that you have to realize is digital marketing is going to work. It really is. If you use the right people, you're going to get the leads, but do you know what you're going to do with them when you get them? I mean, you have to be able to have a system in place and a team that's trained. And so that really took us that was probably one of those things, 6 to 8 months in that we were finally ready to start taking those leads and doing it and really turning that on. We were kind of playing with it a little bit so that we could see, how to handle that, how to handle, if report requests or appointment requests and that kind of thing. And once we kind of had that system in place, then we were able to really, turn it on. And I love the digital stuff because it lets I can kind of test some messages for certain areas and see what's going to work. Is tinnitus working right now? Is that a concern for people, or, those kinds of things. So we can kind of test out the messages and then, have some information that we can act on it at that point. But we really had to get the systems, get our people ready, and then we could turn that on. But it really was, probably about 8 months.
In that realm, Kim, you were with, I think, Fuel Medical at the time. Maybe that's wrong. And they had like a free website or a free digital, or as part of your agreement. I don't know all the details, but like, what is it like to give up something that feels like it's part of your current group or feels like it's free to something that is going to take a significant investment? Like, what was that decision? What was the cost benefit analysis? And then what were the ultimate results of taking it outside of the industry and saying, I'm going to go hire an expert in this realm?
Yeah. So Fuel had done our website, and I'll be honest, like I liked our website. I thought it was well, it was well designed, had the information that we wanted on, that kind of thing. So I had never really had a problem with our website itself, but what I was seeing is I just wasn't getting the results. We weren't doing great, in search engine optimization, in rankings, in Google requests, that kind of thing. So I knew that there was a problem, and it doesn't matter how much you like your website or how pretty it is if it's not performing, right? So we just looked into Market Hardware, and we knew that they get results, and that, and they promised, what we'll do, we had not really a trial per se, but it was always we can part ways if this isn't, if it isn't working. And so it's another one of those gambles, I'm going to invest, and I'm going to expect these kinds of results. That's one thing it's a great thing to be able to jump into, because it's pretty much, you don't have to think too much about it. If you hire somebody to kind of run that search engine stuff, run the ads and things for you, I get on a call with Shannon once a month. I look at the data a couple of times, but it's for what it brings in. It's a pretty low investment of time. It is an investment of money, but it's always been worth it.
Well, and I tell this story, right? Keith and I, when we first met, we went from, website vendors, digital marketing vendors. We then tried to create our own website and digital stuff. But then we found at the time Jimmy Marketing, which is now Market Hardware, which I think is in the process of merging with another company, Socius. And for me, it wasn't even the website. They did align with direct response. They did align with the patient journey, but it was their tracking mechanism. And for the first time ever, I had a spreadsheet that could tell me who the patient was, what day, what time, what phone number, what email, what they requested. And now internally, I could match my results with what they showed as my report. It wasn't about clicks. It wasn't about impressions. It wasn't about the stuff that everybody kind of wants to skim over. I could actually put patient names with revenue generated, and now I had a system. Yeah. Right. And I mean, I wouldn't use them if it wasn't for that system, because that's what allowed me as a business owner to have the business intelligence, to have the ROI, and to make sure that I wasn't wasting dollars on digital like I had so many years before.
Yeah, no, it was a big shock, because when we got our new website from them, I'm like, well, this looks fairly similar to what I had before. I don't, great. We just spent all this money. But then, what you don't understand is you're paying for the expertise. And then that's one thing. I don't know any audiologists, any providers, any business owners who want to take the time to become SEO experts and, do all that kind of stuff. So that's just money well spent. And it's like, it's invaluable to be able to track that stuff and say, okay, I know that, this is coming in from here. And even when you're speaking with patients, one thing that's really cool that Market Hardware does is, when we pick up the phone, it tells us where they're from, and we can react, with the patient a little bit based on what we know just, what they searched or where they came from. So that's kind of a bonus too. It's those just little bits of data that you can start refining your systems better.
And I mean, now we're getting really high level, but now those leads funnel into helping hand automation, which starts and stops whichever nurture sequence they're in. And they could be in there for anywhere up to that 7-year average time frame to start treatment, right? So the systems work together, the vendors work together, the monthly treatment plan with Allegro works together to do all three things that Kim started with, which is get more new patients, treat those patients more often, and get those patients to spend more when they do work with you. And we've had great success. We've had success from Hawaii to Alaska to Florida to Maine, all over the place. And for those new people on, right, I want to give them some implementation steps. I think we've done a great job, Kim. I think that, we talked about mindset. We talked about knowing your data so that you can drive better decisions. We talked about the vendors. We talked about the cash flow surge campaign. We talked about pre-education. Like those, that could probably take most people 8 months or a year. And if you did just those things, you would have tremendous success. You would hit $1 million+ and you'd be off to the races on your next goal. Is there anything specifically like that you would say, do this next, or anything that we missed?
I don't know that we missed anything, but I think the number one thing to do is know your data, like know your goal, know those things. That's in that simple formula. Know your conversion rate, know how much it costs you right now to get a patient, so that you can figure out how much you need to spend, and then you can figure out where to spend it. But you just have to commit to doing it, to do a little step every day. I mean, it's every business book I've ever read, every leadership book, it's it's always you have a goal and you break it down into steps, right? And so you just commit and be accountable to yourself and to your team. Okay, this that over the next 2 months, we're going to, implement automation, or we're going to, first step, we're going to send that cash flow infusion campaign. So we have a little bit of breathing room to do some of the other things. And then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this. And I think that's, where the coaching is invaluable. Is just, you guys have so much experience being able to say, okay, this is going to be the most important thing for you. Let's help you do that.
I love it. And it looks like Nashley has a question. So I'm going to see if I can, hopefully I can hit this button and she can ask her question. Nashley's up in Canada. I know you had some conversations with her and a few others. So I do want to get to what were those people asking and what would you recommend? And then this idea also, Kim was like, Jared, I want to help. I want to help more people get the success that we had. I love seeing other business owners successful. I want to help them get to $1 million. So we got to talk about next steps. So that's one of my core values, Kim. So what are we going to try next? What are we going to have a second call and say, hey, let's answer these 4 questions in the next call? But let's see if Nashley's still on here. There she is. You can unmute. Nashley, you're up.
Oh, sorry. I think I hit the raise hand button by accident. I didn't have any questions.
Well, it's good. It's good to have you. Do you have crystal clear next steps for what you need to do to start getting traction the way you want it?
I'm getting there. It's all coming together slowly. It's definitely in the last 6 months come together piece by piece. So through listening to Kim and you and all this training, it's slowly getting there. It's definitely been a process, just like you said. It's taking it one step at a time. So
I love it. Yeah. And you're doing great. So just know you're a fast mover, and right, the way you get out of quicksand is slow and steady. So I think that's the hardest part, Kim. We get really excited, we get really inspired, and we want to do. And everybody laughs when I say do. But anyway, you want to get traction. So what can you offer to those people that you talk to, Susan and Nashley and Sabrina and John and, all of Darian that are on here? What would be next, and what can you and I or yourself do next?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing you and I had talked about is just, it's kind of a 12, I don't know if it's a 12-week or 12, some kind of, I essentially came up with, kind of a 12 steps for implementation, as far as, at least for us, this was the number one thing. And this is how, kind of how we went about doing it. So I think we're going to put together just kind of a series of, first off would probably be just an introduction. What do we mean when we talk about automation? What happens when somebody actually, clicks on a Facebook ad or whatever, what do we do with that information? Just so that everybody understands, because what, that was one thing that was really confusing for us was how did Helping Hand work? Why did I need Helping Hand and Jimmy Marketing and Auto Experts? Like, how were they different? Like, just having just a basic overview of, I think there were the leadership boot camp, I actually drew a very simple diagram out on a whiteboard. Okay, this is how everybody works. This is, if somebody's coming through the patient journey, this is where they go. So just some simple things like that, kind of a very next step. Okay, do this, then do this, then do this kind of thing. So
yeah, I think we gave, five great starting points. Like I said, set a goal, know what it's going to take to get that goal, know your data so that you can drive better decisions, right? And then run a cash flow surge campaign to start getting some cash flow coming into your business so that you can relieve the pressure valve of cash flow. You can relieve the pressure valve of how do I pay for this? And then begin pre-educating patients. I think if you do those things right there, over the next 6 months, over the next 2 quarters, you're going to see tremendous results that allow you then a strong foundation to start building bigger, higher, and going forward. So those would be my first steps. I think Kim and I are going to hop on another webinar and we can start breaking those down, Kim, a little bit more in detail. And I do remember at last year's marketing implementation boot camp down in Scottsdale, you were up on that board, showing everybody what the journey looked like, what your avatar patient was. I think you colored his hair, like
we drew him out.
Best drawing ever, right? For understanding who do we want to do business with, who can we treat, and how do we make money doing those treatments? And because you had that, it was a great learning lesson for everybody. I know you'll be down at the mastermind in March in Scottsdale. And I think that that's another at least hour-long session, if not longer, when we're all together and people say, hey, I recognize Kim. I know she's won. I know she's been successful. She's been on the journey like Jared has. She's been on the journey I want to go on. And then in that mastermind room, we can have another discussion and go through the whiteboard work.
Yeah, I love it. And I think if one thing I would just suggest to people is just be accountable to it. If you're going to commit to it, if whether it's, Jared or Morgan or me or however you do it, but break it down into small steps and then be accountable to yourself, to your team, and to a coach to actually start on the journey and get things done. And piece by piece, you're just going to see results, and that will snowball onto, doing more and more.
And I would just say, you have a lot of opportunities. You have a monthly coaching call in our group. You have weekly Fix It Fridays. We have the masterminds. There is an ability for you to be intentional. And if you come with incremental questions, what do I do first? What do I do second? I've done this now. What do I do next? We can help you in those group settings, and helping you in a group setting helps everybody in the group, instead of having to have side conversations. And that's why I love the power of a mastermind. I love the power of a community, because it gives everybody a chance to hear and improve. If you want more above and beyond, definitely reach out to me, Jared at Auto Experts, audexperts.com, Morgan at AUD Experts, and say, I want more. I want more marketing help. I want more coaching on marketing. I want more implementation. I want Kim's insight and help. Reach out to Morgan or I. Say what you want, and we'll definitely build and help you get a program around getting action as fast as possible. Remember, you're learning and accelerating time based upon my journey, Kim's journey, and everybody that came before you. Mine took 12 years. Kim's took 18 months to 2 years. So you're not going to do this in 30 days. You have to be patient and let it unfold, but you're going to do it quicker than I did it. And chances are you're going to do it quicker than Kim did it.
Awesome. Yeah, I love it.
All right, Kim, I appreciate your time. Anything else we missed? I know those were kind of my bullet